My name is Hannah, and I'm going to tell you how my life changed on my first wedding anniversary. At the time, I was living in a small apartment in the 15th arrondissement of Paris with my husband, Adam. To others, our life seemed perfect, but the reality was very different. She pauses for a moment, gathering her thoughts, then continues. Adam and I met 2 years earlier at an art gallery opening where I worked. He was charming, caring, and in the beginning, everything felt like a dream. But over time, something shifted. Adam became distant, sometimes even cruel in his words. I often found myself walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might upset him. Hannah looks down for a moment, as if recalling the emotional toll. Still, when Adam told me he wanted to do something special for our anniversary, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe all was not lost. Maybe he really wanted to fix things. She smiles faintly, though there's an edge of sadness in her eyes. He suggested a romantic getaway to the Jura, near the Harrison Waterfalls, where we had shared one of our most memorable first dates. I agreed, holding on to the hope that this trip could bring us closer again. Hannah shifts slightly in her seat, her voice growing softer. I wanted to believe that things could go back to how they were. But deep inside, I wondered, was this weekend really going to change anything? Or was it just a desperate attempt on my part to hold on to something that was already slipping away? She takes a deep breath and then looks at the camera with a resigned expression. I didn't know it then, but that trip would turn my life upside down. The journey to the Jura was supposed to be a chance to reconnect. The car ride started off quiet, but as we got closer to the waterfalls, something didn't feel right. Adam was acting strange. He seemed nervous, his eyes darting over to me every now and then, but he said nothing. The silence was deafening. When it became too uncomfortable, Adam simply turned up the radio, like the music could mask the heavy weight in the car. I tried to focus on the beautiful landscapes outside, but the growing unease in my chest made it hard to breathe. She recounts their arrival in the small village of Menet-Truy-Anjou, the fresh air, and the familiar beauty that used to bring her comfort. However, the discomfort she felt was growing stronger. We arrived at the village near the waterfalls, beautiful, isolated, surrounded by trees and nature. It should have felt peaceful, but all I could think about was the tension between us. Adam suggested we take a walk, and though I was hesitant, I agreed, hoping the walk would bring us closer. We began walking along the trail, and as we got closer to the waterfalls, the sound of the rushing water grew louder, almost like it was warning me. The sun was shining through the trees, but the warmth didn't reach me. Something was wrong. Adam stopped in front of the waterfall, his face changing. His expression was no longer warm, it was cold, distant. I couldn't place it at first, but I knew something was wrong. He looked at me, and in a voice I didn't recognize, he said, "Hannah, I've been thinking a lot lately." My heart sank. I could feel the pit in my stomach grow as I realized this was not the conversation I had hoped for. Then, he said the words that shattered everything. "I can't go on like this. This life, this marriage, it's not what I want." I was in shock.
"What are you talking about?"
I asked, but he just laughed, an icy laugh that sent a chill through me. Before I could react, before I could even process what he was saying, Adam pushed me. I saw the edge of the waterfall right beneath me, but it was too late. My body was already falling. I remember hearing his voice scream, finally free, as I fell toward the dark waters below. The next thing I knew, I was underwater, the cold water taking my breath away. I couldn't think, couldn't move. The current was stronger than I expected, pulling me further away from the edge. I fought against the water, but it was relentless. I remember the rush of water, the burning in my lungs. For what felt like forever, I was tossed around, unable to control my body. But then, a memory came to me, my father teaching me how to swim. "Don't fight the water, Hannah," he had said. "Let it carry you. Breathe calmly." That memory gave me the strength to let go of the panic and calm my breathing. I stopped fighting and let the current guide me, slowly moving toward the riverbank. My feet finally found solid ground, and with all my strength, I pulled myself out of the water. I was bruised, soaked, and trembling, but I was alive. I collapsed on the shore, gasping for air, the reality of what had just happened hitting me hard. Adam, my husband, the man I loved, had tried to kill me. And it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of madness. It was planned, premeditated. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the river water. But it wasn't just the physical pain that hurt. It was the emotional betrayal. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen the darkness in the man I married? But as the tears fell, Hannah finds her strength. But in that moment, something else began to rise within me: anger. Adam thought he killed me, but I was alive. And that thought sparked a fire in me. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to fight back. I knew I had to act quickly. Adam would check to make sure I was dead. I couldn't stay here, not after what happened. I had to disappear and make him believe his plan had worked. But what I didn't know then was that the woman Adam thought he had broken was gone. The woman who had trusted and loved him had died in that fall. And in her place, someone new was born. Someone who would never allow herself to be mistreated again. After the fall, I was in shock. I could barely breathe, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Adam would come back to check, and I couldn't risk him finding me. I had to act fast. Despite the bruises, the cuts, the pain, I knew one thing for certain. He thought he'd killed me, but I was still alive. I forced myself to stand, my body screaming in protest, and started walking along the riverbank. I had no idea where I was going, but I had to get away. I needed help, and I needed to think of my next move. One thing was clear. The woman Adam had known, the meek Hannah who would never stand up for herself, was gone. I was reborn in that fall, and I was ready to take control. As I walked through the forest, the pain in my body was unbearable, but something inside me pushed me forward. Then I heard the sound of a car in the distance. I hurried toward it, praying that someone would stop and help me. A few minutes later, an old Peugeot appeared. I waved frantically, and to my surprise, it stopped. A kind man, probably in his 50s, got out of the car, looking concerned. "Madam, are you okay? Did you have an accident?" he asked. A few minutes later, an old Peugeot appeared. I waved frantically, and to my surprise, it stopped. A kind man, probably in his 50s, got out of the car, looking concerned. "Madam, are you okay? Did you have an accident?" he asked. As we drove, my mind raced. I knew I couldn't go to the police right away. Adam would have the advantage. I had to disappear completely first. But where could I go? How could I start over? When we arrived in Moraes, Jean-Pierre insisted on taking me to the hospital, but I refused. I needed time to think, to plan. "I'm fine," I told him. "I just need to contact my family." He left me outside a small cafe in the city center, giving me some money for food and a drink. I was alone now, truly alone, and for the first time, I allowed myself to take a breath. I sat there, feeling both empty and hopeful. I had nothing, no phone, no money, no way to contact anyone. But then I remembered Clara, my friend, the one person I trusted completely. I had to reach her. I asked to use the phone in the cafe, and when Clara answered, relief washed over me. "Clara, it's Hannah. I need your help. Don't ask any questions for now. Please, can you come and pick me up in Moraes in the Jura? It's urgent. It's a matter of life and death." There was a brief pause on the line, and then Clara's voice came through, calm and strong. "I'm coming. Text me the address, and I'll be there in a few hours." And just like that, I felt hope again. I was no longer alone. As I waited for Clara, I thought about what was to come. Adam had wanted to destroy me, to silence me, but I was alive. I had survived, and now it was my turn to act. I had to disappear, make Adam believe his plan had worked. But when the time came, I would return. And when I did, he wouldn't be the one in control anymore. Clara arrived a few hours later, and when I saw her little red car pull up in front of the cafe, it felt like a lifeline. She rushed out, her worried eyes scanning the street for me. When she finally saw me, her face fell, and I saw the shock and concern in her expression. "Hannah, my God, what happened?" she exclaimed as she ran toward me. I stood up, wincing in pain, and despite the physical agony, I felt a sense of relief wash over me as Clara gently took me in her arms, careful not to hurt me further. "It's a long story," I whispered. "Can we go somewhere to talk?" As they drove to the small hotel, the silence between them was thick with unspoken understanding. Clara, a true friend, didn't ask any more questions, but gave Hannah the space she needed. We arrived at the hotel, a quiet little place where we could finally sit down and I could gather my thoughts. Clara stayed close, but she respected my need for calm. Knowing that I had to process everything that had happened, I sat on the bed, exhausted but determined, and then I started talking. It all came rushing out: the slow deterioration of my relationship with Adam, the increasing cruelty, the emotional manipulation, and then that day at the Waterfalls. I told Clara about everything: how Adam had tried to kill me, how he pushed me, laughing as I fell. I saw the horror on Clara's face, the anger building within her. "That bastard," she hissed, unable to hide her rage. Clara wanted me to go straight to the police, but I couldn't. Not yet. I knew Adam would have the upper hand if I went to the authorities too soon. He would claim it was an accident, and who would believe me? The grieving wife, who had miraculously survived. No, I needed to be strategic. Clara, I told her, I needed to disappear. Adam must think I'm dead. I need him to believe his plan worked. And while he's convinced I'm gone, I'll gather everything I can to bring him down. Clara immediately got to work. She offered me her aunt's house in a village far from Paris. It was quiet, isolated, perfect for what I needed. I could hide there and plan my next move without anyone finding me. Clara took care of everything. She went back to the apartment to collect my things, but I couldn't go back there myself, not yet. I couldn't risk Adam seeing me. And in the meantime, I began gathering evidence: emails, texts, photos, anything that could prove the truth about Adam's cruelty. While I was in the safety of the house, I focused on one thing: gathering everything that could put Adam away for good. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. This was my only chance, and I had to make sure I had all the evidence I needed. But despite the pain, despite everything I had been through, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. The woman Adam thought he had killed was gone, but I was still here, stronger than ever. And now it was time to take back control of my life. The days in the small house in St. Nectar were both peaceful and filled with determination. As the sun rose over the volcanic landscape, I woke every morning with a renewed sense of resolve. I had a mission now, and nothing was going to stop me from achieving it. Clara and I stayed in contact, and she brought me the things I needed to continue with my plan: my laptop, important documents, and most crucially, proof. The pictures of the bruises Adam had given me, the messages he'd sent, the humiliating moments he'd subjected me to in public. All of it. Every piece of evidence was another step closer to justice. Meanwhile, Adam was playing the part of the worried husband. He reported me missing to the police, and I had to sit back and watch as he fooled everyone around him. I had to stay calm. He couldn't know that I was alive, not yet. I had to let him think his plan had succeeded. But every day that passed, I became more determined. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. Not when I had the chance to expose him. I knew it would take time, but I was patient. I wasn't going to make any hasty decisions. One morning, as I sat on the terrace with my coffee, I realized something. I could turn this situation to my advantage. Adam thought I was dead, but what if I could use that against him? What if I could get him to admit what he did, even if it was just a partial confession? That would be the ultimate proof. I immediately contacted Maître Dupont, the lawyer Clara had connected me with. He was reluctant at first. "It's risky," he said. "If Adam finds out you're alive before we're ready, it could jeopardize everything." But I wasn't going to let that stop me. After a long discussion with Maître Dupont, we came up with a plan. We wouldn't contact Adam directly, but we'd create a false trail. We would make him believe that someone knew I was alive, that I had been seen. We'd push him to panic, make him desperate enough to reach out to someone to silence them. We started circulating rumors, planting false sightings of me in the neighborhood. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I could use this. I could make him crack. The next few weeks were intense. The rumors spread, and Adam took the bait. He contacted one of our false witnesses, trying to bribe them into silence. We recorded everything. I could barely contain my excitement when Maître Dupont called me with the news. Adam had made a mistake. The recording was exactly what we needed. He was guilty, and now we had the evidence to prove it. We were ready to file the formal complaint. I knew this was my moment. Adam thought he had won, but now I was going to make sure he paid for what he did. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about getting justice for every woman who had suffered in silence. This was the final step, the moment I had been waiting for. And nothing, not Adam, not his lies, was going to stop me now. The trial was everything I had imagined and more. As we entered the courtroom, Adam sat there, looking calm, almost as if he was attending a routine business meeting. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I felt no fear. Instead, I felt determination. When it was my turn to testify, I felt every eye in the room on me. But I didn't flinch. I started talking about our love, the good moments, and how everything slowly deteriorated. And then I described that fateful day at the Waterfalls. My voice was strong and unwavering as I told them about Adam's cruelty and the calculated way he tried to kill me. The courtroom was silent. My story, my truth, was unfolding. Adam tried to deny it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The photos of my injuries, the recordings of his attempted witness bribery, the testimonies from those who had seen his outbursts, all of it painted the picture of the man he truly was.
I was no longer afraid.
And then it happened. Adam cracked. After hours of interrogation, he finally admitted it. Okay, he shouted. I tried to kill her. She was going to leave me. She was going to ruin everything. And just like that, the truth was out. The man I had loved, the man who had promised to protect me, was nothing more than a monster. The police arrested him, and as he was taken away, he looked at me. But there was no remorse in his eyes. Only anger. It didn't matter anymore. He was done, and I had won. The days following Adam's arrest were a whirlwind. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I started working with the lawyer to continue the fight for justice, and I focused on creating the New Start Foundation, dedicated to helping other women like me. I wanted my story to be more than just a personal victory. I wanted it to be a beacon of hope. A few months later, the association launched. It wasn't just for me. It was for all the women who needed a way out, who needed to feel heard. I met so many brave women who had been through similar experiences. And for the first time, I knew that all the pain, the fear, the betrayal, it hadn't been in vain. I received countless messages from women telling me that my story had given them the strength to leave their abusers. One woman, named Sophie, told me that my words saved her life. That's when I realized this wasn't just my fight. It was a fight for every woman who had been silenced, every woman who had been made to feel invisible. Today, I stand here not as the woman who almost drowned, not as the woman who was pushed into the water. Today, I stand here as a survivor, a fighter, and someone who is now taking control of her destiny. I've found my voice, and I'll use it for all the women who still need to find theirs. This is just the beginning. As long as there are women suffering, I will keep fighting. The future is ours to shape, and no one, not even Adam, can take that from us.